today I have a dilemma. I always have a dilemma. I have this little pot of string of hearts here, which it's always a dilemma for me because they grow so long and they get tangled up. And but they stay in this little pot. They just grow long, but they don't grow bushy. So I was thinking for a long time if I should layer this one into another pot around here. If you want to see how I layer my string of hearts, there is a video in my channel that shows you how I do it. But I'm also thinking if I should change this into a bigger pot and twirl all of this back into the same pot so I don't have to deal with another pot of string of hearts and layer it within the same pot. So I've been thinking about this for a long time until I found a container which I thought would be perfect to replant this, and let's go. I've prepared the substrate for the string of hearts, but before we plant the string of hearts into the container, there's one more thing that I'll need to do to the container first. Let me show you. I found this in our trash room. I'm actually quite good at picking up trash. This looked really new to me, this container. I don't know why someone would throw it away, but anyway, I got this from the trash room, washed it properly, and I thought it will make a very good planter. I might have to line the bottom a bit because there are so many holes there, but we'll see. It'll be very, very good drainage, that's one for sure. But before I fill this up with the substrate, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill 4 holes, which I've already marked. One here, here and here, so that in future, if I should want to hang this up, which I probably would because I have no space, I would have holes to put wires through to hang it up. So right now I'm going to drill the holes. So when you drill something and you don't want to destroy your table, make sure you have a piece of wood to protect your table. So in the best case scenario, if you have a clamp, you should clamp this down as well so it's stable and it doesn't move. But we'll see how it works, all right? So make sure when you drill, your drill is actually straight down. Like this one is fine. This one it's a very thin piece. So even if you go at an angle, you still get your hole. But for thicker pieces, you should actually angle your drill straight down so you get a nice straight hole. Also, for your information, there are different drill bits for different materials. This one is a multi-purpose one, which I can drill through plastic or wood. If you have to drill through masonry, there is a masonry bit. And if you have to drill through metal, there is also a metal bit. Now that we're done preparing the container, I'm going to show you the combination of substrate that I usually use for my string of hearts. Now for the string of hearts, I mostly use dry substrate, which comprises of charcoal, which I've hammered to smaller pieces because the roots of the string of hearts is actually quite fibrous, quite small, so they need smaller substrate. And then what I have here is a succulent mix. These are a lot of different stones combined together. This is what I use for my succulent. I also have leca balls. And then for the ingredient to absorb some moisture, provide some moisture for the roots, I have some cocoa chunks here, which I've also cut into tiny bits. Now, contrary to popular belief, the string of hearts actually need quite a bit of water, especially if you're in Malaysia. Okay, although it has succulent leaves, it does have succulent leaves, but I actually water this. If it's out in my balcony, I actually water this every day, and also because it's in a terracotta pot. Now, I know some people who treat the string of hearts like a succulent, and they don't water it for weeks on end. That is not very good for the string of hearts. You will know when it needs watering when the leaves become wrinkly. Okay, the leaves become wrinkly and limp. It's time for watering, and this happens to my string of hearts every other day. So I actually have to water this quite frequently. But it also depends on what mix you put inside. As you can see, most of my mix are dry mix, and I've only one moisture retaining ingredient, which is this. So this substrate, I find, will give the plant very good drainage. That is also one of the reasons why I can water this plant every day. I should just mix them all together. Okay. It's not enough here, so I'm gonna have to make more substrate. So I do need to cut these into smaller bits. If you have bark is also good, like orchid bark. So basically, the string of hearts, I find actually really like orchid mix. So anything that is resembling the orchid mix, it will love it. If you have a mix like this, you will never be afraid of overwatering a plant, because it will all just drain through, and moisture will be just retained within the cocoa chips itself, and it won't drown the roots of your strings. So many people have asked me, how often do I water my plants? That is actually a very simple question, but it's a very difficult question to answer, because there's so many things involved in watering your plant. I can tell you how I water my plant, but it doesn't mean that it will work for you, because it depends on so many things. I should actually make a video on how I water my plants, and hopefully you guys can get an insight and adapt it to your own plants and your own environment. Okay, that looks all right. Now let's see. Is this going to come off? I need to pry it out gently. Okay. Now look at that. You see how fibrous the roots are? It's dropping all over the place. You can see it better here. Look, the roots are actually pretty tiny. So we'll benefit from like smaller pieces of substrate. Bigger pieces would create too many air pockets and they wouldn't know where to root. So look at that. So you actually need all these little pieces of porous mix, porous soil or porous stones to fill up all the gaps so that the roots can actually bind everything together. I think I'm going to plant it on one side and I will trail the rest on the other side. Okay. Now, one thing I didn't do is I didn't check whether this planter is deep enough, but I think it should be no problem. Okay, now what I actually need to do is actually need a very thin layer of soil, either soil or peat. Okay, a layer of soil. Now I actually find this thin layer on top here, be it soil or cocoa peat or peat moss. This layer here is actually very important when you want to encourage your plant to root. Like what I'm doing now is I'm going to layer this strings back into here. This thin layer of soil will actually keep more moisture on the top of the pot, on the top of the container, so that it will encourage rooting to occur faster. It will retain the humidity on the top, but it won't affect the drainage of the whole container. I'm going to have a hard time untangling this and lining this back in. Let me see if I can show you. Alright, if you can see this, this is actually a node. You can actually see small roots coming out from it already. So to encourage all these nodes to root, because with each node that roots, you will get a small plant that comes out. So that's how you get your string of hearts bushy. So all these have like little bits of roots coming out. So with this top layer of soil, it will retain a lot of humidity on the top of the pot. That's what you want to encourage rooting. And you want as much of these nodes to root into the substrate as possible, so that new little plants will grow out from where it's rooted. What I would do next is I would have little pins like that. I'll make these from like aluminum wires, small aluminum wires that I find in Daiso. You can find these in Daiso, or you can actually find these, or the bronze ones, in some of the garden centers. So they come like this, aluminum wires. What I do is they're very soft, so you can actually cut them with the scissors, and then you make it into a U shape, so you can actually clip the strings down, secure it nearest to where the nodes are, so that the nodes would touch the top of the substrate. And then after this, just give it a mist and then just place it in wherever you want to place it. Now, because this plant is already rooted here, this will be quite fine. Even if it takes a long time to root here, your plant is still growing here. So layering is a very, very good way of duplicating your plant without having to cut it off the mother and stop its growth. It will continue growing as it roots. Layering is one of my favorite ways of propagating a plant, especially with plants like these. Okay, I think we're done for today. I will, as always, update you when or if this plant grows into a huge plant for me. Fingers crossed. I will see you again soon. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching. Hi guys. Okay, I just thought I'll give you a quick look at how the string of hearts is doing now. So what you saw was 2 weeks ago, and this is after 2 weeks. As you can see, the leaves have all turned up. So if you remember, when we placed all this back into the pot, the leaves were like all over the place. So after 2 weeks, the first thing that you will notice that if the plant is doing well, then the leaves are all turned up towards the sun. Okay, so now they've all reorientated themselves towards the sun. And secondly, can you see all these? These are the continued growth of the plant. So you can see they're all coming out of the pot. Okay, that means the plant is still growing from the mother. In those 2 weeks, I've actually added more substrate on top, like more cocoa peat and some soil. Now, I don't know if any of the nodes have rooted yet, but it really doesn't matter because the plant is doing quite well as it is now. It will root sooner or later. So here is the 2-week update. I will continue to give you guys update on this plant, but for now, this is it.